Hello, hi everyone. We are four of us presenting the panel on Agile methodologies. I'll start with introducing the group. Myself, I'm Aakriti Agarwal. I'm based in Singapore, and in terms of my background, I've been working for a bank for about 5 years now. Did my bachelor's in computer engineering, and I've been lucky to have had the chance of exploring Agile methodologies at work. Initially, it was pretty much traditional waterfall methods, but in the last 1 year or so, I've worked on agile processes, and it's been a great experience learning all of that and employing those techniques at work. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, as to how you can use agile at work and start seeing the benefits of those processes. So that's number one. And then I'll pass it over to Sophia, who's going to introduce herself next.
Sure. I'm Sophia Xiao. I'm from San Francisco Bay Area, and I've been using Agile for the last probably almost over 8 years. And my previous company, right now I'm at Box at Los Altos, close to Los Altos, Palo Alto, and in my previous company, it was Vontu, and it's a startup as well. And when I joined, they already had iterative development, and we did a transformation from iterative development to agile. Um, we've been doing that for the last 5 years, and then I joined Box as the first program management hire and started program management in engineering for Box. And one of the reasons that I joined Box is they want to actually do a transformation from the traditional development to agile. So we've been doing that in my a year over 2 years, almost 2 years at Box. And we've been today when I met virtually with the four people on the panel, and we've been talking about Agile, and we will focus on more the practical experience all of us have with Agile. And now I will pass on to Tiffany.
Hi, my name's Tiffany Lentz. I work for ThoughtWorks. I've been with ThoughtWorks for 10 years, and I've been practicing Agile for 10 years. I've actually been a Scrum Master for 10 years now. My background is actually psychology. I don't have a background. I have a master's degree in psychology and therapy, so I don't have my computer science upbringing has all been through the industry itself. And I feel very privileged to have been able to learn Agile from the very beginning from folks that were doing it before it was called that. So ThoughtWorks has been practicing Agile since the very beginning. And I've been able to both be a process engineer and program manager at ThoughtWorks for this amount of time, and also been able to see the company itself grow from 400 people to 3,000 and spread our footprint globally, which has brought its own challenges with a methodology that is so interactive. So it's been a learning experience as we've watched our clients go global and our own company go global. So that's some of what we'll be talking about today, I think. And Vidya?
Oh, can you hear me now? Okay,
Yeah.
I'll go again then.
Can you quickly reintroduce yourself?
Oh yeah, sure. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. It looked fine here. So I'm Vidya, and I work on. I'm a program manager at Microsoft. I graduated with my master's in computer science from North Carolina State in 2012. So I'm probably the youngest member on this panel with a work experience of 2 years. So, in my first year at Microsoft, I was a part of the enterprise content management team in SharePoint, which had a fixed ship cycle, and we used to ship once in 3 years, as it's known. And we followed a more traditional waterfall approach there. And in the next year, I got transitioned into the Yammer team, and the Yammer team is one of the most agile teams at Microsoft. We ship weekly, sometimes bi-weekly. So I've had an experience of working in the agile, using the agile methodologies for the past 1 year, and I'm excited to share my perspectives here.
Sounds great. Thanks everyone. Let's get started with the questions now. So maybe I'll be the first one to get the privilege of asking a question. Let's discuss what exactly does agile mean for us. We are using this word quite often in our discussion today. It's what about our panel is about. So let's think about what does agile mean. Maybe I can start answering it myself. For me, agile means moving fast. It means instead of having a project which has a very specific analysis phase, then development phase, then testing phase, agile for me means having somewhat mini projects and actually seeing their impact on a much regular basis, on a much shorter timeline of maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks, rather than having to wait for 8 or 9 months to actually see what we have come up with, what is a tangible product out of the process. I think it makes me feel that I'm making a difference every day. I feel like I'm shipping something every single day, and then I'm having a very clear impact, which I can measure regularly rather than having to wait for a really long time. So that's what agile means for me. Let me ask, let me ask Tiffany now what she thinks about agile since she's been doing it for about 10 years.
Well, I agree with you, Akriti. It is about feeling that impact on a daily basis and really feeling like you're part of a bigger thing and part of a business solution. I would add to that that for me, it's not just about the tangible what, but it's also ways to be as
I think
responsive
she's
and
having
as
connection
fast
issues.
as you
Sophia, do you want to
can,
go in the
whether you're
meantime?
delivering software or whether
Sure.
you are house, building a house, cleaning your house, and whatever behavior you're doing, are you able to fail fast and speed up that process in any way and be more efficient? So for me, Agile is very much a mindset of just doing only
Yeah,
what
and
needs
if
to be done
I
and being
can
as
add
lean
to
as
that,
possible.
I totally agree. Agile is definitely the mindset rather than the methodology. Methodology supports the mindset, of course, and especially, I mean, Box, we are very fast-moving startup. Actually, it's not so small startup. We have close to 1,000 people now, and one of our company value is actually fail fast, right? So try some things which fits really Agile definitely fits that model.
Right, sweet. No, I completely agree with everything that you guys said. From my perspective, it was a huge change when I moved from a traditional approach to an agile approach. But the one thing that I've learned is in agile methodologies, you put customers at the top, like at the center, and you respond to change very fast as opposed to other methodologies wherein you have a fixed ship cycle and then the feedback needs to flow all the way through the entire cycle. So in agile methodologies, you are putting the customers first, you are putting the actual building and shipping over tools and processes, I would say. So I'll show the next question. So how does the work culture differ when you're implementing agile methodologies between a multinational tech company and a startup? Tiffany, I'll ask you this question. Okay, Sophia, do you want to go? Because Tiffany's audio seems to be a bit.
Sure. Yes. Yeah, actually, I have experience with both, studied both as well. So let me start with Box. So Box, there was no problem of implementing Agile methodology. Everyone was really, we are very fast moving company and was very, everyone probably embraced Agile from the very beginning. And also when I joined, our for us to be in the cloud business, we had the advantage of actually continuous deployment. So we release every day. and Agile methodology fits that really well as well. So, and also, especially large portion of our free user base, our consumers, they actually we are able to leverage Agile very well in that sense that we can actually release something really fast, which is the MVP, and we can test our market and get their feedback and iterate on there. And just what I said, as we do continuous deployment, we release every day. That kind of Agile methodology works really well. In addition to that, the mindset, the company, it's not even just the engineering doing Agile, right? We're talking about the mindset. The whole company actually have that mindset as well. So we are able to iterate really fast on kind of the, we do A/B testings and things like that. So we can push out the feature and doing some testing and also kind of validate either our hypothesis or invalidate our hypothesis and able to move a lot faster. And I actually say, so I can probably speak to a little bit about a multinational tech company in that perspective as well. So I talk about my previous experience also in Vontu, and Vontu was acquired by Symantec
Mm-hmm.
several years ago. And when we actually acquired Symantec, acquired by Symantec, Symantec traditionally has release softwares and that they have a release cycle that's much longer. Vontu, we don't release every day, but we have a much shorter release cycle. We release every quarter. So because we were able to actually demonstrate the benefits of Agile, there was a proliferation of adoption for Agile methodology at Symantec as well. So we were actually one of the first examples using Agile and used it very well because if you don't know, Vontu was in the business of data loss prevention, and we were actually at 70% of the market share in that sector. And because because our success, we were able to actually start some of the Agile initiative within Symantec. So now looks like Tiffany's back. I will pass on to her with her experience with ThoughtWorks.
Thank you. Sorry about that. And so, yes, watching ThoughtWorks grow and watching the industry move from continent to continent with Agile has been pretty fascinating. We have projects running currently in every industry, from anywhere from 5 people located in all in one location to 300 people across multiple continents, and they're all practicing Agile. So this is actually not something we as a company have had to change our methodology, but for our clients, we're constantly helping them along that path, mentoring and process coaching to move from a waterfall approach to a more iterative or agile approach. Um, Multinational, I think the biggest challenges, again, going back to communication, collaboration, and transparency, it's become more now about adjusting ourselves and being flexible with one another, and frankly, doing what we all do best, which is finding new technologies to use to help us all communicate. I mean, look at where we're all located physically today, and we're doing a fine job. I mean, I think we could work on a project together, right? So it's in our generation, we're very fortunate to have this ability. I think there's a level of pragmatism that is required with every project team to just be sure that they are understanding one another, understanding the customer's goals, and then being understood by one another. Whether that means you have to get on video, adjust your work hours, create the right kind of documentation that is goal oriented and the most pragmatic. Any of those are all options, and we use them all every day. There's not a cookbook for this. In my experience, it really is about having a set of goals for the customer, and then having a mindset of communication, collaboration, and transparency, and you're all working toward that goal. One thing that we find certainly with the fail fast mechanism is you do have to have a bit of egolessness around making mistakes and being okay with making mistakes, whether they be process related or software related, and then just walking away from them immediately and moving on.
Yeah, I actually think that's if I can add to that, I'm totally agree with that sentiment. And one of the things that we actually implement Agile in both in Ubuntu and at Box was really that, as program management, we bring our kind of the best practice in the industry. And what we had to do is actually really adopt it by each group, right? So what we actually do is we actually have that core group. They're the ones actually being a two-way street communication menu. They are responsible to getting feedback from the group, what things work and what things doesn't work. At the same time, we are able to kind of show them what's the industry best practice, and we were able to actually iterate out even on the process itself to make sure having something that's really adopted by the culture of each team. So I totally agree with Tiffany. There's no cookie cutter kind of a model. This is exactly works because it has to be able to adopt it by each group, each company based on their culture. There's little modification, but at the end, the process itself has to be very practical.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think one of the big mistakes people make is that they think of Agile as it is kind of a recipe. Like if I do all of these things and put all these ingredients in and I check all the boxes, I am therefore Agile. And they're missing the nuance of flexibility and pragmatism and responding to one another. I don't think any process, I mean, I'm also PMP certified. I don't think PMP was designed to be followed as a recipe. I think it was designed to be a toolkit, right? And you draw out the things that make the most sense. I'm sure, Vidya, you could probably share a lot more with us about that. But can we talk a little bit more about increased collaborations? I'll ask maybe Vidya and Aakriti. How do you increase collaboration, reduce misunderstandings when you're working in geographically disparate areas? What experiences do you all have?
Right. So I've been having some experience working with basically driving projects between, Redmond and China and Redmond and Ireland, Redmond and UK. So Yammer is basically split. Like our core team is split between Redmond, San Francisco, and London. So we need to work between these three countries or geographies, on a daily basis. And I've been driving some projects with some folks in Ireland, etc. So one thing that I really found was helping us was having a clear understanding of what are we doing, because we are in Yammer, we don't take any project that is more than 8 weeks long. Like we slice it down. Even if a project is bigger in scope, we slice it down so that it comes to like it's anywhere between 2 to 8 weeks, including the cleanup, etc. So bug fixing, cleanup, everything. So we slice it down. So once we have a sizable chunk, or what we call the minimum viable product, we make sure that there is a really clear feature spec and a tech spec, not more than a page long. If it's more than a page long, it means the project is long. So that's the methodology we go with. So we have a very clear feature spec and a tech spec. And we have a program manager, which is me for my projects, and we have a technical leader, let's say, he's basically like the tech lead who is making sure that from a technical point of view, everything is right. So making sure we have a really clear feature spec and tech spec to set the direction for the project is one. And the second thing is very clear division of roles. So in Yammer, the way the team is split is it's based on your functional expertise. So we have a core services engineer, a Rails engineer, front-end engineer, a QA person, an analytics person, a designer, and a program manager. Basically, we pick, let's say I'm designing or working on project X, we pick who are all the people we need for this specific project, and we loop them in. So there is a very clear division of roles as to what every person is owning so that they don't step on toes, especially when you're sleeping when the other person is working, and vice versa, because of the geographical distribution. And the third thing is we kind of, let's say we have two people from London and a couple of them from San Francisco and one from Redmond. We make sure that the tasks given to these people are kind of connected so that they're not blocked for 8 hours until the next person comes and frees them up. So we make sure that connected tasks are given to people who are kind of relatively geographically close as opposed to the other people, so that they're not blocked during the day. And the most important thing is we have daily Scrum stand-ups. So every day some of us have to wake up early or stay late. That's okay though, but we just make sure that we are connecting at least for 10 minutes and just saying, okay, go. What did you do today? Are you blocked? What did you do yesterday? What are you going to be doing tomorrow? Or, are you blocked? Do you need any help? Or do you need an SOS thing today? Wherein somebody needs to stay up late and finish it. So basically these small things, which you kind of sometimes take it for granted, are the things that really help that the process or the project flows smoothly when you're working on projects between geographically distributed areas. Do you want to add something to it?
Yeah, I think Yeah, sure. I agree with everything you said, but then we use quite a few of those technologies as well. What happens in my case is that being based in Singapore, I work on a project with a team in North Carolina, and it's about 12 hours apart. So what we do here is make sure that we have a scrum of scrums. So internally, when we start the day here, it's end of day in the US. So our team in Singapore would have a scrum where we understand what was done, what is going on, and what if anyone has a blocker. And at the same time, when our day ends, the US team is just coming into office, and I'll have a scrum of scrums with their scrum master to understand, this is what we did the whole of the day, and then this is what you can carry on for the rest of your day. So that in a way helped us, the 12 hours difference, because then we were not able to, say that, oh, we have a blocker and we are waiting for the other person because there's an overlap for at least 15, 20 minutes or half an hour, as you said. Someone comes early, someone stays in later. Second thing which we did was to use some simple tools like Excel spreadsheets and wikis. So for example, what we did was our Singapore team was totally doing the back end stuff, and the US team was doing entirely the front end stuff. And it was a big web services project. It was a project for about a year, but we made it down to 2 week sprints. So
Mm.
what we did was that to make sure that we are calling the same methods and the same specifications are used for looping in the front end with the back end, we created an Excel spreadsheet where we used how does the risk request look like, how does the response look like, what are the sample test cases. So that Excel spreadsheet, it's a very, very simple tool, but it helped us all be on the same page. And there was no miscommunication about, oh, your method call is different, or my code looks different from what it was expected to be. And Vicky again was there to put all the issues in one place, so you know what issue the previous team faced, so that when you come into office, you can just have a look at the wiki and understand how was their day, and if there's any blocker, or if there's any expectation they are having from you. And also, it was just good to have a VC. I mean, being in so disparate locations is sometimes it's important for people to be able to put faces to names, and it just makes people feel a little bit more involved in the project rather than having 20 names to work with and not having an idea how those people look. So we used to have monthly video conferences as well, at some point in the evening for us in Singapore, so that the whole team can assimilate and see, oh, hey, I worked with that person, or we worked together on this. So I think those are small things, but that really made a difference to how the project came along. And having it broken down to 2 weeks made it easy for all of us to see the impact we were having, and continuously iterate over every single sprint to see if we were making any mistakes and if we can improve the process as we go.
That's great. And now looks like we have a question in the queue from Tan. And the question is, our team is working as an agile team. However, upper management continues to ask for end day and commitment for the end day. And what suggestions do you have to address this? And I'm sure that it's a pretty familiar question for most of us. Let's start with Tiffany. Do you want to take the first shot at the question?
Sure. That's a very fair question for management to have, actually. So it would be unfair of us to think that it isn't okay for them to ask how their money's being spent and when they should be expecting to see some results. Sometimes when teams talk to me, they almost are upset by those kinds of questions. I think they're legitimate questions, actually. Um, so my approach is typically, or my recommendation is typically more transparency. Can you invite someone from management into your daily stand-ups? Can you show them the work that's being done? Can you invite them to your demos at the end of every one of your sprints or your iterations? Second, from a transparency standpoint, you do have more metrics than waterfall projects. You have actual status of things that are done and when you expect certain pieces of functionality to be done within the next week, 2 weeks, even as Vidya was saying, 8 weeks. You have a really good idea of what's going to be delivered in an 8 week time frame. So can you expose that to management in some sort of visual, in some sort of Excel spreadsheet that shows them what they're paying for and what they should be getting on a daily or every couple of day basis? And then get their buy-in on what you're expecting to deliver so that they feel part of the solution as well. But really, transparency in terms of metrics, visuals, and demos are the way to get them to feel like they're understanding the goals of the team as opposed to being opposed to the team.
And anyone want to add, Vidya?
Right, right. I mean, it's pretty similar. I mean, to what I'm seeing on a daily basis too. I mean, it's not just upper management. Sometimes it's it's also folks from marketing and sales, like people actually on the field selling the software. They have a pressing feature that their customer wants, and the engineering team has started working on it, but they were like, okay, can you give me an end date? Because I want to tell that to the customer. He's asking me for a specific date, like, is it going to be available this quarter, next quarter? Like, but you, from the engineering side, you cannot really commit to a date because it might get done sooner or later, So you really cannot say, okay, March 30th, yeah, you're going to have this. That's not possible, I feel. So what I do from an IC perspective is I loop in these marketing people and their leads like in every single weekly status meetings that I'm having. Or like, so basically we have the meeting, a weekly meeting, and then I post all the notes as an announcement. We were completely based out of Yammer, so we post announcements in Yammer, and I invite all these people. All of them are looped in, and I say, I can give you an ETA, but I'm going to put a big star over there and tell you that provided there are no unexpected surprises, provided there are no bigger blockers in case, then yeah, then we would be able to ship by then. But I think it's also understandable from their end because these people are in the field, like they need to tell their customers you're going to have this feature by this day. So I think it's once they start understanding the agile methodology better, I think they're also rolling along with us about giving the right pitch to the customer so that you're still having them as your customer, the customer is not ditching you.
I
Yeah,
guess we could wait for a little bit while because seems like Dan still can't hear us.
Yeah,
So
right.
just make sure that we are helpful where we are
And when she's
answering.
back, we can probably
summarize.
continue.
Continue.
And I do have one last question for the panel. And what is the difference between what you think doing Agile and being an Agile company? What are your thoughts on from various sides of the company?
You want to go to?
Tiffany, do you want to start or Vidya?
Sure,
One of you?
sure. I guess I will. Um, Doing Agile and being Agile, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, this is that for me, it really is about a mindset of how you think about solving a problem. Maybe I'm a little biased, but I tend to think that women naturally operate this way. And I don't want to be pejorative either, but Agile is just a process like any other process. It will be as good as the people who implement it. It will be as flawed as the people who implement it. It's not magic. It's not a silver bullet. It's not a spirit walk. It's not anything that often people think it is. It's not the answer to all their problems. It is a way of thinking about solving problems. It's a way of thinking about, am I communicating as effectively as I can? Am I collaborating as much as I can that gets me toward the goal, my team toward the goal, and sets all of my teammates up for success? And it is a way of being as transparent as possible about how you spend your time and what you are doing to add value to the team. If those three things are in place, anything else can be very pragmatically applied. Do you use one tool over another? Do you use a wiki over a Google Doc, over an Excel spreadsheet? Doesn't really matter if it's solving the goals of communication, collaboration, transparency, and you're moving in the right direction. That to me is being agile as opposed to following a list of perhaps good ideas that could be perceived as instructions, but really aren't. They're not really going to get you to a place of constant agility.
I totally agree. Still, if I will just add to a little bit to that, just exactly what you said. Tiffany, I actually was just talking to a group of students actually from Stanford yesterday, saying exactly what just you said. Agile is really a process. It's as good as the people that implement it, and as good as the people adopting it as well.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that I will add, just like you said, we coming back to beginning, we talk about Agile as being the mindset and we actually at Box, we actually give the freedom of each Scrum team to use the tool that will help them, right? And
Mm-hmm.
being still being a co-locate in one location, we had the luxury of everyone still in the same office, at least close by. So what we do is in terms of roll up on where we're going, and this is touch up on your point of visibility and transparency, is we actually have a big wall. We took one side of the wall on the hallway and then we have all the projects that's listed on there. And this is where our leaders can go and find out where things are. And that's related to
Mm-hmm.
question 10 I was asking is end dates and commitments. it's a lot of it is because when sometimes they ask is because they want visibility, right? It's and also like Vidya talked about is in terms of the marketing and the customer success group is they want to be able to prepare the launch as well as our customers. So there's very valid reason for all these asks and giving them visibility to all these. It's very, it's very important actually for the company. So that's why being an agile company is really one of the key for adoption. And one thing I want to add there is I actually host so how do we know where everything is, right? We anytime in a quarter we have 90 plus projects. I run Uber stand up, what I call Uber stand up. That's getting our about 20, close to 30 strong teams in front of big whiteboard, and we do a stand up, and it takes 20 minutes every week. And that's the platform for people to communicate their dependencies and where they are, and also celebrate success. So that's where I think is being an agile company is all about, is giving people that transparency at all levels. And now I just want to actually the big whiteboard idea we actually got from Yammer. Actually, we had a dinner with Chris, who's the VP of Engineering and Yammer. So I'm sure Vidya, you can talk a little bit more about that.
Absolutely. I was surprised when Sophia said board because we do that. We have a big physical whiteboard, like literally a big board that is the size of a wall. And what we do over here is there is a list of magnets, like every engineer has two magnets, a present magnet and a future magnet. So there's a present Vidya and a future Vidya. So what we do is we write down, we have a product backlog, an exhaustive list of products that should be funded, and we have a product backlog. And the way we work as a company is we take each product, we prioritize them, and the product managers usually own the tedious task of prioritizing, making sure every project has the impact data, the metrics, everything, like what impact it's gonna, what good it's going to do or what bad it's going to do for the service as a whole. And then once the project is prioritized, we take the top few projects, and every project is of course going to have a feature spec which lists the number of engineers it needs. So what we do is we take a project, we see the number of engineers, we put, because everybody has a present and a future magnet, you would be knowing who is going to be freed up based on the magnet. So you take the engineers and then you put it for each project, and then you write the duration of how many weeks. Let's say it's 5 weeks. So from the fourth week, what the engineering leads would do is they would start checking on the status, like, hey, is future is Vidya, are you going to be free from next week because we want to put you on the blackboard again. So it's literally a physical process, and the advantage of this is you can just walk by and see, like, everything is just there. Like there's no hidden stuff, like Tiffany said, it's completely transparent. What project is being funded, who is working on what. And given the fact that a part of my team is in San Francisco, one more is in Redmond, and one more is in London, we have virtual blackboards. So literally, we use some softwares that will help us just see the blackboard from where we are, exchange blackboards. And there are a couple of people who make sure that they summarize all of these three different blackboards into an Uber blackboard, very similar to what Sophia said. It's happening at Box. So it's very physical, it's very transparent, like Tiffany said. It's very flexible because you kind of know who's coming up with what, and if there are unexpected bumps, then you can pretty much handle that too. And yes, Sophia, I could completely relate to it when you said blackboard. Akriti, do you want to add something to it?
I think you guys have pretty much summed up the whole thing. Yeah, we basically have a blackboard as well, but we use mostly post-it notes. And what we do across the time zones is show everyone how the post-it wall looks like. So that's what we call our blackboard.
Awesome.
Do we have any other questions from?
I see. Yeah, I see a second question by Nirmala. A common feedback is that agile development is rather intense for developers. The need to really complete each feature 100% within each iteration, and the relentless of iterations is usually quite tiring on the minds. Any ideas to handle this and achieve a sustainable pace for the team? Sophia, do you want to take this?
Connie, do you want
to? My first suggestion would be, what's your target velocity for that for every iteration? I mean, if it seems like you're pushing the team to just a limit that is just a little bit too much, then dial it back by one story, one feature, whatever increment you're measuring on, and see if that feels a little bit more sustainable. I mean, the goal is not to run faster constantly, it's to be able to constantly predict consistently. And consistency is much more valuable to customers, as Vidya was saying, people in the field. It's much more valuable to management than constantly running faster. So if your team's just moving a little too fast, then dial it back a little bit.
And totally agree with that sentiment again, Tiffany. So I think it's all about we, Advantables at Box is we are running a marathon. We're not just running every sprint very fast. So I think that the team health is actually a very important part of being successful at Agile, right? So if again, I think the only way that works really well is actually you're constantly tracking and reporting, right? Give people that visibility. How is that team doing, right? So if they feel really tired and try to complete everything in a sprint, and then this is really a chance for people, think about, and this is where actually retrospective comes in mind, right? And to me is we actually have very retrospective for every team for like an hour at the end of the sprint. We run 2 week sprint as well, and one of the it talks about anything about it's really 3 category we talk about is what things that are doing very well that we should keep doing, what things that need improvement, and what things we want to try. And sometimes the team do bring up. I mean, I attend them randomly because we have about 30 Scrum teams, and I see that come up time and over time. Is well, we working really hard last sprint, and like we are physically tired. And one of the people will try to suggest is, okay, we schedule 100 points for last sprint, for example, and this is probably not sustainable. So I think that have the team to think about what work well and what not working well. And this is, a major concept of self-organizing teams.
Yep.
They will actually get to a point that's very sustainable for that team. It can be, and again, the points are relative to each team, right? So we shouldn't compare them to begin with. It can mean that some teams do want to take a break and, even like some of my teams will just decide, we went really fast, and we should just take one sprint. And what we do is really doing documentation and looking our, customer support queues and helping them. This is a way for them actually to readjust. So I think that have the team to self-organize and find out what is the right pace for them is actually one of the ways to look at it.
Yeah, I think I agree with Sophia quite a bit as well, because what we do internally in our teams is allow the developers themselves to predict how much they'll be able to work on, rather than a PM actually coming up with the estimates and the numbers and saying, you have to finish this in this time. We have a sprint planning meeting where the developers themselves say, okay, let's take up this task. It'll take 5 man days or 4 man days or half a day. So having that involvement from the developers themselves in a way puts their skin in the game, and then they feel more contributing and they feel more involved with the numbers or with the time that the project takes for development as well. And then obviously again, agree with Sophia's point on documentation. So we make sure that whenever a feature spec is finished, the developer actually documents that whole process. So that gives the person a couple of hours or at least 3-4 hours of a break in some sense to distract themselves from the development and actually finish the documentation. And then it allows the next team in the US time zone to actually use the documentation and continue with their work. So it's a good way of relaxing and overlap with the teams outside of Singapore. Vidya, any comments on that?
It's pretty much what we do in Yammer is pretty much along the lines of what you guys said. But one thing that I want to add is though we strive to finish everything 100%, we understand that sometimes it might not be possible. Like for example, I was working in a project in the last month where we had some unexpected fires and we had to attend to it because it was impacting the service because of some change that we were doing. So we had to just go and make sure that we attend the fire. So what we did was, as a result of which, we were unable to fix some bugs that were actually in our feature. So, but it was okay. It was okay because in Yammer we have a team called the product support or support engineering team, which works on a rotational basis, and any bugs or any issues that have been missed out by each of these feature teams go to product support. And because the process is very transparent from the beginning, the product support folks are also looped into some discussions. So they have a good sense of understanding of what is happening with respect to this project, where exactly is the issue. So once we miss out something, the product support takes it on and completes it. Like it's like passing the baton to the product support folks and say, hey, please complete this because we are unfortunately not able to complete it and we are rolling off this project now. So and as much as we want to do everything 100%, but I think it's sometimes it's okay to not be able to complete it 100% as long as you have folks in the product support that you can rely on.
Mm-hmm.
Totally agree.
Do we have any more questions?
I hope, Nirmala, we answered your question.
Sophia, I really liked the idea you proposed or you shared around teams taking a break. And I think there's so many creative, engineers are creatives, right? They are people who are creating something as much as an artist is a creative. And I like the idea of being able to give engineers a break in the iterative cycle and be able to say something like, this iteration, all you're going to do is spike out new ideas. And at the end, we still have to report back. We still have to be accountable for how we spent that money, right? But we're going to spike out new ideas for 1 week. Or we're going to fix a whole bunch of defects, or we're going to buy down a bunch of tech debt that we've built into the code, or something that allows people to change up their brains a little bit. That's really thoughtful, Sophia. I like those ideas.
Yep, yep.
That you were,
Thank you.
that you were talking about.
A way in which we do that is we have hack days. So
Oh, nice.
we have hack days for 2 complete days, 2 complete days of hack days and 1 days of presentation, and we do it pretty regularly. I would say once in 3 months, maybe. So every 3 months, everybody in the team participates in this amazing no strings attached hack days, and they come up with awesome stuff. Like, and you guys won't believe like most of the projects that we implement are ideas that we picked up from hack days, wherein that person was able to do it in 2 days. So of course it's a rough, prototype kind of thing, but still he was able to do it in 2 days. And maybe if we get this into the feature or the service, that's going to be, amazing. And that's where more ideas come in. But this whole process of unwinding and then after hack days, you're like fresh again, ready to go. So it's a interesting way of taking a break, I feel.
Mhm, mhm.
And I think Deanna
Great.
has asked one more question.
You want to read the question, Vidya?
Yeah, can you talk about a huge mistake someone has made in Agile and something people should watch out for during the process?
Yeah, maybe I can talk about it briefly. I think one mistake which I felt we did in the first phase of our project was to make it very processy. After all the discussion we had today about agile not being a process and being a mindset, we were using this tool called RTC. It's from IBM Rational Team Concert to actually track the time the developers were spending on that, and it became very process oriented. People were like, it's such a chore every day to come and enter your times here, and it's kind of introducing a lag in the project, and they didn't really like that. So I think one thing which we have to keep in mind specifically for not agile to fail is to not make it very process oriented. Let the PM actually take care of all the tracking or at least the integrity details of time management rather than the developers themselves who are more focused on the tasks at hand.
Absolutely. One more thing that I can add is one mistake which I think I did is not being completely transparent. So the issue over there was I think I felt I was looping in a decent number of stakeholders, but looks like there were more stakeholders than I thought they were. So because of what happened because of that, what the other person was not aware. So because we are a big company, like Microsoft is a huge company and Yammer is a decent big, number of people, I should say. So what happened was the other stakeholder did not know that this was happening. So he kind of got anxious, confused, and but the nutshell is to take away is be completely transparent. Like make sure you loop in more people from the beginning so that they're all aware. And it's okay if you think you're annoying them too, because at the end of the day, it's good to have that information than not.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah, too much
I think
communication is
my
not too bad.
yeah one of
Go
my
on,
biggest
sorry.
mistakes. No, it's okay. One of my biggest mistakes is very similar to yours, Vidya. Early on, starting out as a project manager and then moving into program management, I made the mistake of thinking that because my team and I was at a client site, so the client was moving from we were coaching them from away from waterfall into agile, and I made the mistake of thinking that because the development team and the development manager and that set of stakeholders were all aligned, that the PMO was also aligned. And so I had, as the consultant, had this very myopic view of, well, Agile's great. Everybody thinks so, right? And actually, no, that wasn't the case. And the processes we were putting in place were actually not going to meet the needs of the PMO, the portfolio management office that was funding these projects. They weren't going to get the right information they needed because we had changed all of our reporting, right? We weren't putting together Gantt charts anymore. We weren't doing the same kind of processing. We were now producing burn-up charts. And so I had to stop and take 10 steps back and sit down with them and just start asking them a lot of why questions. Why do you need this? How does it help you? How does it make you successful? Are you willing to accept a slightly different format to get the same information? Um, and it was a very hard, laborious process, but finally we were able to get everyone on the same page and find people within the PMO who were willing to kind of experiment with us about a different set of reporting that still got them the same kind of financial information they needed. That for me was a huge mistake. I won't make it again.
Yeah, and I actually have a question for all my friends on the panel as well. And I'd like to understand, like, from your experience with Agile, what is the one big kind of misconception of Agile that you had to deal with? And for me, I can probably start. For me, was a lot of is, oh, now we're doing Agile. We don't really need a planning. There is, product manager love it because I don't have to write any specs anymore. So how did you deal with it? Well, what is one of your biggest misconceptions about Agile?
I think my business expected that since we moved to Agile, it's going to be faster, and the product will be released in a much shorter timeline, which is not actually the case. The difference is just that you have iterations, and you can see the product coming through instead of a waterfall methodology. But it's not that instead of 1 year, it will only take 6 months for it to be implemented. So the way we talked through our business was actually similar to what Tiffany was mentioning earlier: is invite them into our stand-up meetings maybe once a week and tell them how the product is shaping. And at the end of every sprint, go and take it to them and say, this is a feature which the team developed over the last 2 weeks, and how the different parts are actually building together to make the whole product. So it was more about making sure the business expectations are clear, that it's not a faster way of development, it's just a different way of development.
Mhm. I tend to run into, in the industry, I tend to run into two misconceptions on both sides of the spectrum. One is that Agile has no discipline. And I literally had a potential client say to me once, and I quote, Agile is a spirit walk. You get there when you get there, you're done when you're done, you all hold hands and sing kumbaya. And I was like, oh my gosh, no, that's so wrong. It's actually so rigorous and so disciplined, and we have so much more data. But it's very empowering at the same time. So I often run into that misconception. The alternate is it's a silver bullet. It solves everything. And like you were saying, Akriti, it's like we're going to be faster and better and awesome all of a sudden. And no, that's not realistic either. It actually doesn't fix everything. It isn't for every project. Every project can be a little better. It can suck a little less, but it doesn't that doesn't make it agile. Those are my two.
Right, right. Mine's along the same lines. To mine is, I think I'm relatively less experienced than all you guys in the panel, but I think the big initial misconception that I found people had was Agile is not a set of rules. Going back to what Tiffany said at first, it's not a set of rules. It's not a checklist with 8 different points, and you follow the 8 different points. That means your company is following Agile, hence proof. No, it's not like that. It's about the mindset. You can tweak the processes. Like the other day, I was reading an article about what exactly Agile is, and Agile is basically a methodology. Like you have n different methods inside that you can follow, like and extreme programming, pure programming, rapid application development or iterative, incremental. Like you can mix and match. It's like a salad bar. You can just pick the ones that is going to work for your company the most and just go with it. But even when I was in school, not too long ago, I read about Agile, like the textbook version of Agile to how companies are using it practically is very different. Like I was under the impression that Agile is a checklist of n things, and you cover all those things, yeah, you're doing Agile. But it's completely not like that. I think that's a really big misconception, especially early grads who complete school and come into the industry have because of, I don't know what the exact reason is, but I think that is a misconception.
Yeah, and just to be honest, I'm still actually dealing with the misconception I talk about is, agile means that we don't really do need to do planning anymore, and there's no, from product management perspective, is we don't, the specs we just need to talk about it, give the requirements during stand up. So this is something that it is our challenge, and we are addressing it. We are definitely better from a year ago, but yes, this is where I think is a little bit of everything that you actually all talk about is really that make people understand, like, again, for us to actually get there is really the mindset has to change. And however, communication is also the key, right? Again, it comes down to transparency
Yep.
and visibility is not only at the end in terms of result, but also the requirements, what we want to build, right? We can only iterate fast if we understand what is the minimum viable product it is. And the other thing is we are in the process also kind of correcting is we start realizing that we sometimes stop at the minimal viable product. So that 80% becomes the full product. So how we actually continue kind of finish up that 20% is also very key. And this is something that I would say that we made the biggest improvement um, at my time at Box the last year and a half as well. So.
How are we doing on
I have
time?
a question as well. I think we have 8 minutes. Diana, are we good so far? I think we have time for one more question. And I'm very curious to know, especially from you, Tiffany, you mentioned ThoughtWorks has grown from 400 to 3,000 people. How has it been sustaining the agile processes from that small number to this bigger number? Have you found some trick or tip that works for scaling agile on that level?
Can you say that one more time, please?
Oh, okay. Actually, we have one more question from the audience. Let's take that
Okay.
first.
Okay.
Any ideas on how to manage scope creep realistically in an agile development paradigm? Scope creep, that's a thing which we all talk about, right? Anyone in the group who wants to take a first stab at it?
Sophia?
I can take the first step on this. So one of the things that I think there's always one of the things actually Agile is good for is actually managing change, right? So that's why you have a small iteration, so you can actually respond to the change faster or request faster. So there's a couple of things we can really, again, it's the reality. Sometimes unplanned requests will come, scope will change, and the first question I will ask is this something that you cannot wait until end of the sprint, right? Because one of the philosophy we always want to is try not to disrupt the sprint as much as possible. So I would say that when you ask that question and ask the why, a lot of times people will think about it. So one of the questions I always ask is, what is the risk we have not doing this right now? And usually they would say, okay, compared to what we're doing today or what we're doing now, this is basically, I think we can wait for until end of 2 weeks or end of the week, right? So I think ask that question is very important. And the other is when you actually come to the sprint planning, this is where actually we should ask ourselves, are we doing the right thing with the right priority? And this is where you actually have a cross-functional team to participate. So not just the engineers. Let's make sure our product owner is there. Make sure our product owner actually did the homework to be prepared to actually come to the sprint planning meeting. So I think have these disciplines actually will manage a lot of the scope creep. At least that's from my experience. What others think?
I, I think that's spot on. I think it really is all about managing expectations, and things will change. They always will. So the faster and more clearly you can let people know what that change is and what the impact is to the overall burn up, the overall release, it's just going to increase their trust in you to be telling them the truth. So I completely agree.
Okay. Should we start wrapping up? Any last minute points, advice, tips, tricks?
I'll start. I'll start, I guess. I think just be as pragmatic as you possibly can. Focus on communicating, collaborating, being transparent, making others successful, whether that be your team, boy, the sun's in my eye, whether that be your team, your client, understand who your stakeholders are. You'll just never go wrong with trying to be more communicative, more collaborative, and more transparent in your process.
Absolutely. And the other thing that I learned and I'm still learning is don't get attached to your feature or project. Like 60% of the
Mm.
times, when you A/B test out in an agile world, it might not be the best thing at all, at the end of the day. So don't get emotionally attached. It's okay. If you help the team understand that shipping this is not a good idea, then that's a bigger success.
Yeah, and I think from my experience is again, I think coming back to beginning is really agile. Don't treat agile just a set of methodology only. It is really a mindset change, and I think adoption and having actually motivate and enable the team to be self-organizing is I think one of the key. Is they actually we have to trust the team. It will take a little bit of time, but we have to trust the team knows the best for themselves. So have them to be, and again, when I say team, it's not just the engineering team, it's that cross-functional team that having, communication is really one of the key is bring them together, having that teamwork is, I think is one of the key success factor for implementing Agile.
Yeah, I think I would agree totally with all what you guys said. One thing which I've learned from the process is don't just wait for the Scrum meetings to talk about what you want to talk about, and if you have any blockers, and don't just think that Scrum Master is the only one person who needs to be kept in loop about what you are doing. Also talk among yourselves, and not just take that one person as the single authority for all decisions, but sort out things, sort out blockers among yourselves, and communicate among each other as well. Yeah.
Right, we have a couple
Oh,
minutes.
interesting, Tiffany. Didn't know there was something like that.
Yep.
I mean, it's old. I'll tell you. I probably haven't seen it in 10 years, but I know it's out there on the internet. It's not a very long work. It's just something that talks about the rights of the customer. It's called the Extreme Programming Bill of Rights. Talks about how the customer has rights to, set priorities, et cetera, but the development team has the right to say how long the work will take, choose the technology that is best for them, push back when things don't make sense. So it's a nice kind of balance to one side or the other having the final say, and it basically forces constant communication. So it's not very long. Just have a look if you want.
Absolutely.
This is great, Tiffany. You can bet you that I'm gonna print this out and put next to my big board next week.
Awesome.
All right.
Okay, great.
I hope everyone also enjoy. I certainly very enjoyable to talking here, and it's kind of very funny that we all come to very very different companies, but come to the very interesting conclusions, right? A set of very similar conclusions. So.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And thank you, Diana. This has been an amazing platform. And like we said, this is the first time the four of us are actually seeing and speaking to each other. So this has been great. I look forward to more sessions with everybody. And thanks to the audience. Thank you, Nirmala, for engaging with us so actively.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great weekend
Bye.
and enjoy International Women's Day.
Happy Women's Day.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.